of an interesting exercise, obviously, and I respect the exercise, and, you know, we put our case forward.
Hi, I'm Patrick Maloney, reporter with the London Free Press and LFpress.com. I'm outside the London courthouse at the end of the final day of Mayor Joe Fontana's 4-day criminal trial. Fontana himself just exited the courthouse with what appeared to be a pretty upbeat attitude. Here's what he had to say to reporters.
Well, it's been long and tiring, but I feel confident.
Is it like exhausting?
Just as bad as city council every once in a while.
So this was the end of the 4th day of Mayor Joe Fontana's 4-day trial on the 3 criminal charges he faces in relation to how his son's 2005 wedding reception was paid for. The day started with a surprise when the Crown appealed to the judge and was allowed to reintroduce a witness, Joe DiPietro, and ask him a brief question. But the day was really defined by the closing arguments by the 2 lawyers. That'd be the Assistant Crown Attorney Tim Zuber and defense lawyer Gord Cudmore. I'll try to give you here a really simplified version of both closing arguments. Cudmore's essentially was this, and I'll give you a quote. For any criminal offense, there has to be an intent to do something wrong. Our whole defense was there was never any intent to do something wrong. So the point that they're conceding is that the mayor did indeed alter the Marconi Club contract he submitted as a $1,700 expense to the federal government when he was a Liberal MP from London North Centre and a cabinet minister, but that the plan was never to pocket the money. It was never to have the money go to his son's wedding reception. In fact, it was to pay a down payment for a completely separate political event at the Marconi Club that never actually occurred. So he appeals to the notion of the mens rea, the guilty mind. The act certainly was not a good act. He uses the word stupid to describe Fontana's decision to do that, but he says there was no intent to commit a crime, there was no fraud intended, and there was no fraud committed.
You know, His Honor said we all make stupid mistakes, and I think that's absolutely true. We all make stupid mistakes, but fortunately we're not all prosecuted for them.
You say this is just a stupid mistake on the part of Fontana?
Yes.
What I took away from Assistant Crown Attorney Tim Zuber's closing argument were 2 key points. The first, that Fontana had no time. This was his argument. Fontana had no time to get an invoice from the Marconi Club, and that's why he doctored up another contract, changed it, made it appear to be for a political event, and then submitted it as a $1,700 expense to the federal government. Zuber's point is, how could you not have time to call in for an invoice from the Marconi Club, but you do have time to take whiteout, to take an eraser, to take a blue pen and make 7 alterations to a Marconi Club contract you already had in your home, this one from your son's wedding, and make all those changes, which surely would have taken much more time than to just call the Marconi Club and get a legitimate invoice sent. So that was an interesting point that Zuber made. The other was that the math adds up to fraud. This is what Zuber was saying. The total bill of the Fontana wedding was $18,900. When you break down how that bill was paid, from Pearl Fontana, who was the groom's grandmother, from the Nosco family, the bride's parents, what's left is $6,700 to be paid by Joe and Vicky Fontana. But what does Joe Fontana pay? $5,000. What's the difference? Exactly $1,700, which was the value of the government check that was sent not to Fontana, as the Crown alleges he intended. But I remind you that the Fontana trial is a judge-alone trial, and while Superior Court Justice Bruce Thomas had initially said he expected to render a verdict by next Friday, that's June 6th, he'll in fact take another week, so he'll be delivering his verdict on Friday, June 13th. Stay tuned to LFpress.com for all breaking news updates from the London courthouse, and read the London Free Press for full coverage and analysis of Mayor Joe Fontana's criminal trial.